And our top story, of course, is the death toll from the 7.9 magnitude earthquake in Nepal now stands at more than 1,900 people. For more on rescue and recovery efforts, I'm joined now by the CEO of Plan Australia, Ian Wishart. Ian Wishart, thanks for joining us. What are the latest figures, read the death toll from your understanding? Is there any change from that official rate that we're quoting?
I'm hearing about 2,000 at this stage, but I did get a report from our country director just 10 minutes ago indicating there'd been another big aftershock, and so we're not out of the danger period yet, and certainly there's been a terrible amount of damage.
It's quite extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, which areas do you think, clearly Kathmandu, because we're seeing a lot of the pictures from there, but we know a lot of rural villages, areas that still are pretty remote and very hard to get to. We know also on Mount Everest itself at base camp there are helicopters now airlifting injured people out of there, but which areas are response crews focusing on as far as you know?
Well, Plan International is working in an area on the western side of the epicentre, a very remote and poor area with Dalit, or the lower caste people, and their villages have been quite devastated. At least 50% of houses are destroyed and many schools. A lot of death, but our people say that fortunately the earthquake happened at lunchtime, and so the children were outside of the school building when the earthquake hit, and subsequently many of them survived. Otherwise there would have been many, many more children killed.
Oh, it's just extraordinary. And of course, Plan, you know, you do try and focus on children in the developing world. Do you have any idea of numbers of people who have been killed or injured in that part where you're talking about west of the epicentre? And I presume you're talking, if you go further west, it would be, you would hit Pokhara, and that is the jumping off point for the Annapurnas, which a lot of Australians love to trek in.
Yes, that's the zone that we're talking about here. And we don't have formal estimates of the death numbers as yet, but we do know that it's quite severe. And what these people now need is they need emergency shelter, because our folks are reporting that everyone, of course, is living outside on the roads or in the fields because they're too afraid to be inside the houses. And in many cases, the houses have already fallen down. So children are exposed to the cold, and fortunately it hasn't started raining yet, but they will need temporary shelter very, very soon. And
when you say that, what does that actually mean, Ian, to get temporary shelter to these people? Are you talking about tents en masse? Are you talking about structured kind of buildings?
The most important thing at this stage is tarpaulins, but I can tell you that this is going to be very, very difficult, because our staff also report that roads are blocked with landslides or collapsed roads. I've run scenario planning on disasters in Nepal. That's how many people in Asia are trained on disasters, and we all know from that training that the roads, the blockages of the roads, will be the biggest hindrance over the next 2 weeks. It will be very, very difficult to get supplies in and out and around Nepal in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, so you're saying to get supplies in, as you mentioned, but also to get injured people out to bigger cities or bigger medical centres, that sort of thing. It's going to be an enormous task.
Yes, right at this moment, search and rescue is what's most important. Checking all of the houses, looking for people who've been trapped. But even these remote villages, even when you get people out of the house, you struggle to get them even to a basic health clinic because of the road access. So a lot will depend on airlift support, and there's just not going to be enough helicopters to go around.
So they really need support from other countries, at least on the helicopter front.
They will need air support, absolutely, for sure, because the nature of Nepal is it's highly mountainous. The roads, I've travelled on them myself when I did the Annapurna circuit, and they are extremely narrow. They're very steep slopes, and you get an earthquake and you could lose 10 or 15 spots on any road, which will take weeks to recover. So this will be, over the next 2 weeks, a logistics nightmare.
So it's a mammoth task that all authorities are facing in all parts of that country, really.
Yes, not just Kathmandu, where we're getting the stories at the moment, but Pokhara, small district towns and sub-district towns, all of them have been affected, and accessing each and every one of them is going to be difficult. At the moment, Plan International is just getting reports out using radio, but it's very difficult to communicate and get the messages around. So the challenges are not over by any stretch of the imagination. The next 2 weeks will be very tough.
Ian, how are you getting your teams in, and are you planning to send teams in from elsewhere?
Yes, we are mobilising people from the regional office in Bangkok. We've also got people coming globally, but we have many staff in Nepal. We have 600 staff in Nepal, local Nepalese. We are mobilising them. The first thing we did, of course, was to check that they are all safe. So far, the reports are great. Looks like everyone's okay.
Oh, well, that's good.
And so they are mobilising. They are sending messages into Kathmandu to our head office, and we're gradually building up a picture of what's going on.
All right, Ian Wishart, please keep in touch with us over the next few days, if you will. Appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you.
Ian Wishart, CEO from Plan Australia. And for the latest forecast